Momoshiki's return to prominence in Boruto's story will be one of the best moments in the entire series. The setup laid out in chapter 12 with Boruto getting sniped by Jura's bijuu bomb will undoubtedly summon the demon himself to protect his only vessel. This might lead to us seeing Boruto finally using Momoshiki's full abilities, and of course there's a reason for that. You see, one of the biggest problems the Boruto fandom had with the series in the past was the absence of Momoshiki's established abilities. These are not theories or predictions about what Momoshiki could possibly use since he has a rinnegan or byakugan. This is referring to the abilities we've seen him use on multiple occasions, but for some reason Boruto doesn't have access to them. Now one could speculate and maybe say that the vessel simply doesn't have access to the abilities of the Otsutsuki, which was actually the main argument used initially. This of course became increasingly difficult to justify since Jigen was able to use Ishiki's abilities, and so was Kawaki later on in the timeline. So suffice to say that if we have multiple vessels being able to use both the power and abilities of the Otsutsuki who implanted karma, Boruto should be able to do the same thing, but he can't. So the real question is why? Well, this might have something to do with the amount of data extracted from karma. So Boruto now being 100% Otsutsuki should change that. Now I'm not sure what I'm gonna title this video as yet, but it's gonna be something to do with Boruto getting ice release or just Momoshiki's abilities in general. Either way, this video is gonna cover both, but first we're gonna start with why Boruto is going to gain access to these abilities in the first place. You see, the premise of Boruto being 100% Otsutsuki leading to him tapping into more of Momoshiki's abilities might seem a bit far-fetched, especially since Kawaki was able to use Ishiki's abilities while he was still just 80% extracted. This was confirmed by Momoshiki in chapter 54, which is after Ishiki's karma seal was removed from Kawaki's body by the way of Ishiki resurrecting through Jigen. This is an automatic failsafe within karma itself, which prevents the existence of duplicated personalities. So logically speaking, Kawaki should still be 80% Otsutsuki in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, since the reconstructed karma only consisted of Akebi's data, not Ishiki's. Yet for some reason, Kawaki was able to awaken the full triangles of Ishiki's dojutsu and gain further mastery of his abilities. So going by that logic, Boruto shouldn't need to be 100% Otsutsuki in order to use Momoshiki's full abilities, but yet he can't for some reason. Now this can mean one of two things. Either Kawaki is 100% Otsutsuki, or there's something special about his karma seal. Both options are equally plausible of course, but let's address the first one. You see, Kawaki being 100% Otsutsuki is somewhat supported in the material itself. This was hinted at in chapter 71 when Code said that both Boruto and Kawaki are full Otsutsukis, which as I pointed out before doesn't make sense since Ishiki's data in the form of karma was removed from Kawaki's body before it finished extracting. That's the entire reason why Ishiki was forced to resurrect in Jigen's dying body instead of Kawaki's. So either Kishimoto forgot about that fact, which I hope wasn't the case, but it's also possible that Kishimoto introduced a mechanic by which this happened due to the reconstructed karma. Now what I mean by this is that the karma seal is pretty much a compressed backup file of an Otsutsuki in data form. This then takes the form of a chip, which is then inserted into the body of the vessel. The more it extracts, the more the chip reduces in size, as it dissolves into the body similar to a sugar cube as explained by Amado. This simply means that majority of that chip was already extracted into Kawaki and Boruto since they were both 80% Otsutsuki by the time Kawaki's seal was removed. By the way, this was also shown on panel when Momoshiki explained that he used the remaining 18% chip data to reconstruct Boruto's damaged organs, which means that Boruto had reached 82% extraction at that point in the manga. So the only way Kawaki could have progressed to 100% is if the karma seal itself is what Otsutsukifies the body, not necessarily the Otsutsuki data that's within the karma. So in a sense, the karma seal pretty much prepares the body to receive that specific Otsutsuki essence by first changing the body to match the genetic structure of the Otsutsuki race. So that would explain why Kawaki was Otsutsukified by the reconstructed karma he received from Amado when he replaced his right hand. So the remaining 20% of Kawaki's human/cyborg data was Otsutsukified, thus making Kawaki 80% Ishiki Otsutsuki and 20% Kawaki Otsutsuki. By the way, this was proven possible by Boruto himself. His body is now currently 82% Momoshiki and 18% Boruto Otsutsuki. That's because Momoshiki converted his remaining karmic data into Boruto's data in order to save him, but the data itself still remains Otsutsuki at its core. That is how Boruto became 100% Otsutsuki Otsutsuki without being 100% Momoshiki. So the karma pretty much has the power to remodel an Otsutsuki's data to match another species while keeping the core aspects of the Otsutsuki gene intact. So it could also be the case that it's able to remodel another species' data to match that of the Otsutsuki, which it could have done by sampling the Otsutsuki data that currently exists within Kawaki's body. Now, none of this was explained in the actual series, of course, as it pertains to how Kawaki became 100% Otsutsuki. So I guess they just expected us to put 1 and 2 together based on what Momoshiki said to Boruto. By the way, this also explains why Kawaki became 100% Otsutsuki before Boruto did, because Boruto was just 82% Otsutsuki in chapter 67 when Momoshiki revived him, while Kawaki was already 100% since this is a fight code used to confirm that Kawaki was full Otsutsuki. So the gap between them is absolutely insane, since Momoshiki confirmed that they were both 80% in chapter 54 after the Ishiki fight, and this was later backed up by Kawaki in chapter 56. So how did Kawaki jump from 80% to 100% in just 10 days, since that's the amount of time that passed between the Ishiki fight and chapter 67 per the statement by one of the Jonins, yet Boruto on the other hand only progressed by 2%. Now one could argue that it's because Boruto took the pills that Amado said would suppress the extraction rate, which he did for about 7 days. But the issue with this is that Kawaki progressing by 20% in just 10 days still wouldn't make sense, since it's been about 6 months since Boruto received the Karma Seal, and him resonating with Kawaki didn't progress the extraction at such a fast rate. So either Amado found a way to speed up the process similar to how he found a way to slow it down, or the Karma Seal was able to do it itself. This is supported by the fact that Karma was able to transmute Momoshiki's data into Boruto's within seconds, thus making Boruto 100% Otsutsuki within a very short time. So if the reconstructed Karma did something similar to Kawaki, it does make sense as to why Kawaki was able to become 100% Otsutsuki so quickly. Now this then goes back to the original point of Kawaki being able to access Ishiki's dojutsu and his abilities due to him being 100% Otsutsuki as stated by code. Now he isn't 100% Ishiki Otsutsuki, which is why he isn't as strong as Ishiki, but he does have enough of Ishiki's data to be able to use his dojutsu, since that's just a tiny portion of Ishiki's genetic structure, which luckily for Kawaki was fully extracted. So we have one example of Kawaki not being able to use Ishiki's abilities prior to him becoming full Otsutsuki. That only changed after the process was completed as shown in chapter 65. The other example of this would be Jigen, who was also able to use Ishiki's abilities while being 100% Otsutsuki. Granted, there's no way to tell if he was able to use this prior to becoming full Otsutsuki since that was never shown, but we can only assume that he wasn't since Kawaki wasn't. This then leads us back to Boruto, who later said that he could better channel Momoshiki's power after becoming 100% Otsutsuki, which then led to Boruto accidentally using Momoshiki's future sight ability through his byakugan. This likely means that you don't need to be 100% of the Otsutsuki who implanted the Karma Seal in order to use the abilities of said Otsutsuki. You just need to be fully Otsutsuki in general. That is why Kawaki can also use Ishiki's abilities despite being 80% Ishiki and 20% Kawaki Otsutsuki. He can just better channel Ishiki's power after becoming full Otsutsuki similar to Boruto. Now this also does apply to Momoshiki when he possesses Boruto's body, because even though he's able to manifest the Borushiki state thus outputting more power than Boruto could, the body itself wasn't fully Otsutsuki, which means that he still couldn't access his Otsutsuki abilities, which is why we never see Momoshiki using his abilities on screen. He's always using Boruto's abilities instead of his own. Now just to be clear, we have seen Momoshiki possess Boruto's body post him becoming complete Otsutsuki as seen in chapter 79. The issue with this is that Boruto suppressed him after he freed Kawaki, so he didn't get a chance to really prove whether or not he could use his abilities. Now Boruto himself likely didn't use any of Momoshiki's abilities in the fight versus Kawaki because he was reluctant to use Momoshiki's power, as opposed to Kawaki who fully embraced Ishiki's. All of this might change in Tubu Vortex since it does seem as if Boruto is having issues controlling his Karma Seal, which is why he doesn't use it. So Momoshiki might have a stronger hold over Boruto's body at this point in time, especially since their thoughts began to merge prior to the time skip. This leads me to believe that Boruto keeps his right eye closed to cover Momoshiki's byakugan, and also uses the glove on his left hand to cover Momoshiki's left rinnegan. Now of course, I already covered this in a video so you guys can go watch that after this one. The gist of it is that Boruto uses a glove on his left hand, yet he doesn't use his sword with his left hand. It just doesn't make sense. So he's likely covering the rinnegan as a part of suppressing the power itself, similar to how Sasuke and Kakashi would cover their eyes to prevent the consumption of power. So with Boruto now being down for the count account, we might see Momoshiki take control and finally wield his full abilities using this full Otsutsuki body, which would be glorious. Now one of these abilities would be Absolute Zero, which is pretty much ice release. He didn't use this in the manga and anime, but he did use it in the novels. So it would be cool to see him using that ability through Boruto's body, especially since it's not like we have any prominent ice users running around, you know? So I might do a separate video breaking down how this jutsu could function based on prior usage in the series. So if you guys would like to see that, let me know down in the comments. The next ability we might see is the tool creation technique. Now this ability doesn't have a name per se, it's like literally just creating tools, so we're just gonna call it tool creation, of course. But in essence, the user has the ability to manifest special red glowing malleable chakra, which when on standby floats behind their back. The user is then able to manipulate it to form various makeshift tools and weapons similar to the Truth Seeker orbs. This ability belonged to Kinshiki, of course, but was later passed down to Momoshiki after he consumed him. So Momo should be able to use this ability as well if he really wants to. This then brings me to Momoshiki's actual rinnegan abilities. To be more precise, the right rinnegan allows Momoshiki to absorb any chakra based techniques, then he's able to augment and discharge them using his left rinnegan. The right rinnegan also seems to have the ability to allow Momoshiki to turn living beings into chakra fruits, as seen with Kinshiki. Though it isn't clear if this extends to non-Otsutsukis since he never used it on his opponents for some reason. It might also be the case that it requires consent, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm more so leaning to Boruto gaining the left hand rinnegan for the reasons I mentioned prior in the video, especially since he already has the karma on his right hand, which already absorbs jutsu and chakras, so the right rinnegan isn't really necessary. Now the next ability is the Deep Crimson Spiral, which is pretty much an amplified version of the Rasengan Momoshiki absorbed using his right rinnegan. This change in properties gives it a reddish color and also increases the size and potency of the technique itself. We likely won't see this since Momoshiki loves the Rasengan for some reason, but you know, it's something he's able to use. Next up, we also have the Black Receivers. Now these are said to be a trademark of the Rinnegan itself, but we've seen characters use them without the Rinnegan, such as Ishiki Otsutsuki and by extension Kawaki, the vessel of Ishiki. These rods can be used to absorb chakra, restrict movements, and also can be used to transmit impulse signals into specific targets. So I can actually see Momoshiki using them since he loves spamming them prior to his death. Now there are other techniques such as the Pheasant Hunter, which is the big firebird thing that was used in the movie and the anime, and even the many golems he's able to produce, along with also wood release as shown in the novels and the movie. So Momoshiki as a character is pretty stacked, so I'm not sure that Boruto is gonna have all of these abilities because Boruto is now currently stacked with multiple new abilities. He has Flying Thunder God, he has Rasengan Zuhiko, he has Purple Line, he has so many abilities already, and then you know Momoshiki just has like this plethora of abilities in his own pocket. So it's like, it's really crazy if Boruto actually is allowed by the plot to go all out and use every jutsu to his disposal. Like the bag is absolutely insane. With that said, that's it for the video guys. Hopefully you guys understood everything I said. I actually have like a sore throat, so I'm trying to speak. Hopefully you guys understood. You guys complained about the audio being a bit too high as it pertains to the music, so I'm gonna turn it down. So of course you guys can just let me know if it's too low this time, you know, it probably will be. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on the video itself. Do you guys think Momoshiki is gonna pop up in chapter 13? And is he going to use all of these lovely abilities? And is he going to defeat Jura? Like, it's so weird. Like, Jura is the main villain and everyone wants Momoshiki to beat him in like chapter 12. But of course, I don't think that's going to happen because it doesn't make sense story-wise. I think it's more likely that they fight, you know, they're basically relative because Jura is supposed to be, I think, we haven't seen any proof yet, that Jura is likely stronger than base Boruto. It just makes sense story-wise, right? I know like some of you guys are not gonna like that, but you know, it is what it is. Sometimes guys, you have to put aside power scaling and you know, that lovely stuff you guys love to do and jumping up and down and just more so focus on the storytelling, okay? Boruto had to lose as I predicted, and of course while Momoshiki should do better than Boruto since he has the power of karma, it doesn't mean he's going to win, of course. But if he does win, it would be good for the story, I guess. Maybe Jura retreats and the story gets to slow down, Boruto goes to the hospital, whatever. Maybe Sarada kinda calms down Boruto and brings him back from the edge, you know. We'll see. This is a lot of yapping that wasn't necessary, so yeah. Leave me your thoughts down in the comments, and yeah, if you guys like the video, drop a like. If you're new, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.